Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right guys, I'm back. It's Monday, March 23rd, and it is 11:18 p.m. I know I am so late because this is my third try at recording this. Plus, I have a very sick cat, Xander, that I'm trying to get into the vet first thing in the morning. So anyway, let's go. And as you can see, well, look at this. It's not very often that he visits. Maybe he'll stay a while and maybe he won't. All right, let's get right into this. I did have, where I thought I would have, 2 videos prepared for tonight, but I do not. I'm about 20 minutes from finishing the iPet Goat 2, the first installment of that. I don't know of anyone that has done this in-depth of a look at that particular short animated film, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. And I do have some people to thank. I'm going to thank those at the end. We're going to be covering all the news in this one video. Q has also posted. I doubt I'll be able to get to that tonight, but I will do that tomorrow. So tomorrow on tap will be Q, iPet Goat 2, first installment, and hopefully some news too, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure how much time is going to be taken up with Xander. He has gotten very, very ill again. He's not able to walk hardly, and the vet had thought he had a soft tissue injury and that it would get better, sent me home with some pain medication, but he's going to need to be x-rayed and see if anything's broken because he's just not able to walk. And I don't know about you, but I cannot stand seeing an animal in pain. It bothers me so much. So anyway, let's get on with the show because well, I'm really, really behind tonight. Like I said, this is try number 3. Yeah, you can blame that on Sammy. All right. Now, I should have fixed this from the last time I recorded because I'm going to need to go out and put it right in the... Oh, I've got it up. Wow, look at that. Oh. All right, I want you to see this because President Trump reacts to the news that Mitt Romney is self-quarantining. We're not going to read the article. I don't think it's necessary, but you've got to see this if you haven't already because... You know, I love President Trump. I think he's just the master troller. But of course, other people have not taken this so lightly as Trump has. But let's listen.
Romney, Senator Lee, Senator Gardner, and Senator Rick Scott. Also, 2 of them were in contact with.
Rick is going out.
With the critical stimulus package vote expected.
Romney's in isolation?
Yes.
Gee, that's too bad. Go ahead.
Did that sarcasm there?
No,
sir?
None whatsoever.
Do you think that Congress should consider changing the rules to...
So that's basically the whole thing. And I just think that that's so funny because you go, do I detect sarcasm there? No, none whatsoever. And yet that in itself is sarcastic because, of course, you know, he was being sarcastic. Now, Mitt Romney voted in favor of one of the articles of impeachment against President Trump in February. Romney and all the Democrat lawmakers were too busy impeaching Trump in January and February to bother with the Wuhan coronavirus that was already spreading across the world. Yeah, imagine if they hadn't been all wrapped up in, impeaching President Trump for nothing, by the way. They didn't even have anything that he had done wrong. But, you know, and now they are trying to hold up getting the funding out there to people that need it, that have lost their jobs during this coronavirus debacle. So, yeah, I don't know how the Democrats can get any lower than they are. But, you know, and the thing is, because Trump has declared a state of emergency, he can do what he wants. He doesn't need them to pass that. He really doesn't. The only reason he's doing it, I think, is because if he didn't, first of all, they would say, oh, he's, you know, taking too much power and whatever. But he's, you know, definitely within his rights to be able to do that. It's a state of emergency. So the country is under a state of emergency. So he can do that lawfully. But I think he did this. I think he did it this way to show and illustrate what the Democrats are all about. And they're all about themselves. They don't care one whit about the American people at all. And I'm going to show you that a little bit later. All right, now let's go back here and let's go to the next item. And this is Joe Biden's virus briefing, and it goes horribly wrong. But, you know, that kind of goes hand in hand, right? Joe Biden, horribly wrong. That, you know, it's like peanut butter and jelly. You can't have one without the other. Well, you can, but it's not as good. All right. Yeah. Oh my, here's Joe Biden trying to upstage President Trump by doing his own CV briefing, and it goes horribly wrong. Biden is clearly reading canned remarks off a teleprompter, but then the teleprompter appears to fail. Biden starts mumbling and stumbling. He has no idea what to say. You can see him gesturing with his hand. Good grief. President Trump walks out literally every day now, speaks clearly, and takes dozens of questions, answering without any help from a teleprompter. Joe can't even get through a few minutes, taking no questions. He had better rethink his strategy. Yes, but this is all good. It's all good. Show the American people, you know, those people that think that Joe Biden would make a great president. I don't know who they'd be or what drugs they're on, but there are people, apparently. I don't know any personally, but now let's watch.
Beef up the number of responders dealing with these crusher cases. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that. The president must use the Defense Production Act.
Huh? Well, he says, well, let me go to the second thing. Well, I don't even understand what he said in the first thing. Did you? Let's look at it again. Just because we can.
Beef up the number of responders dealing with these crusher cases.
Crusher cases?
And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that.
I'm sorry, but this is just getting absolutely embarrassing. Is this the best that the Democrats have to offer? Because that's frightening, really. Could you imagine this guy in a crisis? Plus, he's very hot under the collar. I mean, you question him on anything and he will try to rip your eyes out. Just crazy. Crazy. All right, well, we don't have to read the article that goes along with that, but let's see if there's remarks here. That would be fun. Margot Pez. Anyone else watching Joe Biden right now? It seems like his teleprompter glitched for a bit and he tried to recover, but he said some weird thing like, we need to do what we did in the 40s, 20s, 2020s. He got back on script, but he just sounds kind of tired. And this person, Jordan, straight up, Joe Biden doesn't look well. During his live stream, he was repeating the same points minutes later, losing his train of thought and struggling, not stuttering, struggling to articulate. When will it be too obvious for media to ignore? Yeah, probably never. And D. Shea, it took a whole week to put this together. Joe reading off a teleprompter for 18 minutes. Let's give Joe a few notes and speak off the cuff for 30 minutes or better yet, answer some questions. You know, see if Biden has the actual capacity to articulate and reason anymore. I don't think he does. I think it's quite evident. And why is Joe Biden holding a press briefing or whatever he was doing on the virus anyway? He's not the president. Do we care what he thinks? He's not handling it. And he wouldn't be able to handle it. Yeah. Joe Biden does not look or sound well, and the fact he has a difficult time reading his cue card is alarming. What the hell is going on with Joe that he cannot speak directly to the American people without cue cards or a teleprompter? Well, that's a good question. After literally a week of being missing in action, Biden still cannot speak clearly or form a coherent thought. It's not his teleprompter that is broken, it's his brain. The only place Biden is riding is the dementia ward. Well, I don't want to be mean, but he does seem like he's got dementia to me. Definitely. Sounded like Joe Biden said Charlie Parker is the name of Massachusetts governor rather than Charlie Baker. Biden at one point had trouble with the teleprompter and was motioning to his people. Yeah, it's sad, actually. It really is sad, and I don't mean to make fun of him, but honestly, what is this man thinking that he could be president? There's no way. There's no way. 4 years, he's going to be even worse than he is now. Not to mention the fact that he's absolutely, thoroughly corrupt. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what the Democrat Party's thinking, unless they're hoping to slip somebody in at the last minute, which is what I believe, personally. All right, now, let's look at this. I was alluding to this, not yesterday, but the day before in the video, and let's take a look here. It says 21 million fewer cell phone users in China may suggest a high CCP virus death toll. Well, I would think so. We talked about that yesterday, that reporter, that Chinese reporter that I had, looked into her, and she had said that they, from the statistics from 3 cell phone companies was, like 18 million or something like that, 15 to 18 million. And now this is saying 21 million fewer cell phone users. Now, I know what you're saying. People are saying, well, maybe just people turned off their cell phone because they were at home. Wouldn't that be when you'd want it the most, when you're at home and you're quarantined and you might need to call emergency services or whatever? Most people don't have hard lines anymore. I mean, some of the older people who don't have cell phones have landlines, but those are few and far between now. And I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense. And remember the video that I showed a while back of just piles and piles, hundreds and hundreds of cell phones that they were sweeping up? They were from the people that had died, and they were cleaning up their cell phones. They were tossing their cell phones, and people with hazmat suits and everything were using sweepers to get them into whatever, to dispose of them. So let me see. The number of Chinese cell phone users dropped by 21 million in the past 3 months. Beijing authorities announced on March 19th deaths due to the CCP virus may have contributed to the high number of account closings. Cell phones are an indispensable part of life in China. So I don't know, but I'm not going to read that whole thing. I think that encapsulates everything that we need to know. All right, let's go back, because we can. And this, we cannot let the cure, and he repeated this, like I've watched the press briefings and everything today. He repeated this today in the press briefings. He said, we cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. At the end of the 15-day period, we will make a decision as to which way we want to go. And what he means by that simply is that if you shut everything down, if you shut all the stores down, if you shut all the plants and factories down, and people are all out of work, there's nobody that has money to put back into the economy because they're not working, and the economy will implode. And that could be dangerous because, number one, you may have people that don't have enough to eat. You may have people that commit suicide because of hopelessness. You may have all sorts of things go wrong. So Trump is saying, really, we got to weigh, are there going to be more deaths from the economic fallout, or will there be more deaths from CV? And is the cure, shutting everything down, worse than the problem itself? So it was a good press briefing today, pretty good, but I don't feel good about Dr. Birx or Dr. Fauci, to tell you the truth. That's me. That's just my personal opinion. But I don't. All right. Now, this from Zero Hedge. Holy shite, this is not the flu. Medical worker describes terrifying lung failure from COVID-19, even in young patients. Now, this is from today. No, it's from yesterday. I apologize. As of Friday, Louisiana was reporting 479 confirmed cases of COVID-19, one of the highest numbers in the country. 10 people had died. The majority of cases are in New Orleans, which now has one confirmed case for every 1,000 residents. New Orleans had held Mardi Gras celebrations just 2 weeks before its first patient, with more than 1 million revelers on its streets. Yeah, that time of year, because I lived there. That time of year is extremely, that's when all the tourists are there. And yeah, there'd be no way to keep your distance and social, because it's just packed shoulder to shoulder downtown in the French district, especially the French Quarter, rather. I spoke to a respiratory therapist there whose job is to ensure that patients are breathing well. He works in a medium-sized city hospital intensive care unit. We are withholding his name and employer as he fears retaliation. Before the virus came to New Orleans, his days were, and by the way, don't ever pronounce it New Orleans in front of somebody that lives there, because they'll come and they'll rip out your spleen. No, really. I know from experience. Anyway, before the virus came to New Orleans, his days were pretty relaxed, nebulizing patients with asthma, adjusting oxygen tubes that run through the nose, or, in the most severe cases, setting up and managing ventilators. His patients were usually older with chronic health conditions and bad lungs. Since last week, he's been running ventilators for the sickest COVID-19 patients. Many are relatively young, in their 40s and 50s, and have minimal, if any, pre-existing conditions in their charts. He is overwhelmed, stunned by the manifestation of the infection, both its speed and intensity. The ICU where he works has essentially become a coronavirus unit. He estimates that his hospital has admitted dozens of confirmed or presumptive coronavirus patients. About a third have ended up on ventilators. His hospital had not prepared for this volume before the virus first appeared. One physician said he tried to raise alarms, asking about negative pressure rooms and ventilators. Most staff concluded that he was overreacting. They thought the media was overhyping it. The respiratory therapist told me, in retrospect, he was right to be concerned. He spoke to me by phone on Thursday about why exactly he has been so alarmed. His account has been condensed and edited for clarity. Reading about it in the news, I knew it was going to be bad, but we deal with the flu every year. So I was thinking, well, it's probably not much worse than the flu, but seeing patients with COVID-19 completely changed my perspective, and it's a lot more frightening. This is knocking out what should be perfectly fit, healthy people. Now, this is what I'm hearing from other healthcare providers. And if you happen to be a nurse or a doctor or whatever in a hospital, and I don't have to use your name, but if you have any information, let me know. What are you seeing, and do you have the equipment that you need? Those are the things that I would like to know. Anyway, this doctor said, I have patients in their early 40s, and yeah, I was kind of shocked. I'm seeing people who look relatively healthy with a minimal health history, and they are completely wiped out, like they've been hit by a truck. This is knocking out what should be perfectly fit, healthy people. Patients complete respiratory arrest, shut down, and can't breathe at all. They suddenly become unresponsive or go into respiratory failure. We have an observation unit in the hospital, and we have been admitting patients that had tested positive or are presumptive positive. These are patients that had been in contact with people who were positive. We go and check vitals on patients every 4 hours, and some are on a continuous cardiac monitor. So we see that their heart rate has a sudden, sorry about that. I apologize. It's getting late. Has a sudden increase or decrease, or someone goes in and sees that the patient is struggling to breathe or is unresponsive. That seems to be what is happening to a lot of these patients. They suddenly become unresponsive or go into respiratory failure. The lung is filled up with so much fluid displacing where the air would normally be. And it's called acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. That means the lungs are filled with fluid, and it's notable for the way the x-ray looks. The entire lung is basically whited out from fluid. Patients with ARDS are extremely difficult to oxygenate. It has a really high mortality rate, about 40%. The way to manage it is to put a patient on a ventilator. The additional pressure helps the oxygen go into the bloodstream. Now, he's not saying that the mortality rate for all CV cases is 40%. No, these are the ones that go into the acute respiratory distress syndrome. Their lungs fill with fluid, and you get that look of cracked glass in their lung x-rays. So anyway, the way to manage it is to put a patient on a ventilator. The additional pressure helps oxygen go into the bloodstream. Normally, ARDS is something that happens over time as the lungs get more and more inflamed, but with this virus, it seems like it happens overnight. When you're healthy, your lung is made up of little balloons, like a tree. It's made up of a little bunch of little leaves. The lung is made of little air sacs that are called alveoli. When you breathe in, all of those little air sacs inflate, but they have capillaries in the wall, these little blood vessels. The oxygen gets in from the air in the lung into the blood so it can be carried around the body. Typically with ARDS, the lungs become inflamed. It's like inflammation everywhere. If you have a burn on your arm, the skin around it turns red from additional blood flow. The body is sending it additional nutrients to heal. The problem is when that happens in your lungs, fluid and extra blood start going to the lungs. Viruses can injure cells in the walls of the alveoli. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. So the fluid leaks into the alveoli. Telltale sign of ARDS in an x-ray is what's called ground glass opacity, like an old-fashioned ground glass privacy window in a shower, and lungs look that way because fluid is white on an x-ray, so the lungs look like white ground glass, or sometimes pure white, because the lung is filled with so much fluid displacing where the air would normally be. So these are the lung x-rays of a man with COVID-19. The severity is usually more typical of someone who has a near drowning experience or people who inhale caustic gas. With our CV patients, once they're on ventilators, most need about the highest setting that we can do, about 90% oxygen and 16 of PEEP, positive and expiratory, I hate when it does that. Expiratory pressure, which keeps the lungs inflated. This is nearly as high as I've ever seen. The level we're at means we are running out of options. So says, in my experience, the severity of ARDS is usually more typical of someone who has a near drowning experience. They have a bunch of dirty water in their lungs, or people who inhale caustic gas, especially for it to have such an acute onset like that. I've never seen a microorganism or an infectious process cause such acute damage to the lungs so rapidly. That was what really shocked me. It first struck me how different it was when I saw my first CV patient go bad. I was like, Holy shite, this is not the flu. Watching this relatively young boy gasping for air, pink frothy secretions coming out of his tube and out of his mouth. The ventilator should have been doing the work of breathing, but he was still gasping for air, moving his mouth, moving his body, struggling. We had to restrain him. With all the coronavirus patients, we've had to restrain them. They really hyperventilate, really struggle to breathe. When you're in that mind state of struggling to breathe and delirious with fever, you don't know when someone is trying to help you. That's very true. All right, where was I? You don't know that someone is trying to help you, so you'll try to rip the breathing tube out because you feel it's choking you, but you are drowning. When someone has an infection, I'm used to seeing the normal colors you'd associate with it, greens and yellows. The CV patients with ARDS have been having a lot of secretions that are actually pink because they're filled with blood cells that are leaking into the airways. They are essentially drowning in their own blood and fluids because their lungs are so full. So we constantly having to suction out secretions every time we go into the rooms. Now, I'm not going to read all the rest of this. I think that's enough. It's scary. And the thing is, you know, we're hearing this from other doctors and nurses that are working with these patients. It's not pretty. And so I understand when Trump says, gee, you know, which is worse, this or letting the economy implode and people possibly starving, or everything that you have in a depression type situation, because this would be far more than a recession. All right, let's go back and let's get into this, because I think you'll find this fascinating. I know I did. Revealed WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom, his last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, reportedly is a ranking member of known terrorist organization and a puppet of China. The Director General of the World Health Organization reportedly promotes what China wants him to promote. No kidding. Really? I would never have known. At the Illustrated Primer website, Yakov Applebaum shares the links between the Director General and China. For example, in late January, he met with China's President Xi. Now, this is... okay, what are they saying here? Because we know that he's had, given the misinformation about the novel CV epidemic, WHO has communicated with some companies, including Google, to ensure that the public will get the authoritative information from the WHO. The WHO highly appreciates the tremendous efforts China has made to contain the epidemic. Okay, the lockdown of people is unprecedented in public health history, so it's certainly not a recommendation the WHO has made. Travel restrictions to and from China can have the effect of increasing fear and stigma with little public health benefit. Oh, really? Why, it's almost like he wanted it to spread. I mean, I'm just saying. On February 15th, 2020, the Director General of the World Health Organization, WHO, addressed the Munich Security Conference. At that time, there were only about 60,000 cases of CV in China and about 500 in the rest of the world. Tedros was more concerned with misinformation than with containment. In his address, he said, "We're not just fighting an epidemic, we're fighting an infodemic. Fake news spreads faster and more easily than this virus, and it's just as dangerous. And if we don't tackle this," he went on, "we are headed down a dark path that leads nowhere but division and disharmony." Now, the Director General is reporting whatever China wishes. As noted above by Applebaum, China has invested millions in Ethiopia. This may in part be why Tedros has made the following statements about the WHO. Given the misinformation about the CV epidemic, WHO has communicated with some companies, including Google, to ensure the public will get authoritative information from the WHO. Travel restrictions to and from China can have the effect of increasing fear and stigma with little public health benefit. The lockdown of people is unprecedented in public health history, so it is certainly not a recommendation the WHO has made. The WHO highly appreciates the tremendous efforts China has made to contain the epidemic. Oh, really? That didn't age well, did it? But Applebaum also explains that the WHO Director General has a shocking past riddled with death and destruction in Ethiopia. His rapid rise to the top of the dictatorship of the WHO began after his collaboration with Bill Gates and the Clinton Foundation and its initiative, CHAI, running some analytics on Tedros' activity between 1991 and 2018 shows conduct riddled with fraud, corruption, the worst forms of human rights abuses and scandals. Tedros lying about his role in the 2016 Ethiopian army police killing of peaceful demonstrators. Well, that wouldn't surprise me, would it? Surprise you? Tedros is who the world is relying on to provide accurate information on the CV. So let that thing sink in. This man, with known ties to a terrorist organization, is the one providing the world with information on CV. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. Okay. All right. Now we're getting into some important news here. Report: Democrats push pork for Planned Parenthood in CV package. Well, naturally they would, wouldn't they? Because, you know, we couldn't shut that down. My gosh, you know, we got to keep those killing factories open. The Hill reported Sunday that one of the reasons bipartisan support for a massive coronavirus stimulus package has fallen apart, is once again, I just ran out of breath there, once again because Democrats want the bill to prop up Planned Parenthood. According to The Hill, a Democratic aide said that the small business provision was drafted to exclude non-profits who received Medicaid from being eligible for Small Business Administration assistance offered under the bill, that according to the aide would impact Planned Parenthood, but also community health centers, rape crisis centers, and disability service providers. Planned Parenthood is identified as a nonprofit, not a small business. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Sunday she will be moving ahead with her own emergency relief package and ended hopes for an immediate vote in the Senate to further assistance for the nation in the midst of the crisis caused by the virus that originated in China. Breitbart News reported Senate Republicans and the White House have insisted they will continue to push for the $1.6 trillion economic relief package, which would include $350 billion in support for small businesses and $250 billion for unemployment insurance. The package would also include direct cash payments to individuals, around $1,200 per individual, with additional funds going to families with children. Politico also reported that Pelosi's announcement is an indication she will not be simply taking up the Senate bill and moving it forward on a unanimous consent basis. That also means the House may be forced back into session, even though many lawmakers are concerned about the threat from the CV and the difficulties in reaching Capitol Hill from their home districts. Fox News reported on the impasse. Democrats also pushed for add-ons, including food security aid, small business loans, and other measures for workers, saying that 3 months of unemployment insurance offered under the draft plan was insufficient. The Wall Street Journal's Kimberly Stassel also weighed in on the stalemate on Twitter. The Senate bill is bipartisan, assembled with Democrat input from day one. Everyone understands need for liquidity and business money that gets out fast and stops more layoffs. Democrats also got plenty, from unemployment push-ups to medical surge to more government money. They now claim not enough. So, and here we have Pelosi's balk is naked attempt to cadge more last-minute money. She's playing politics in a crisis, which is almost as bad as Elizabeth Warren suggesting this is a corporate slush fund. Government shuts down economy, and Warren blames business. Toxic. 2 weeks ago, it was discovered Pelosi attempted to ensure a Hyde Amendment loophole was included in an earlier CV economic stimulus proposal. The Hyde Amendment is a long-standing provision applied to spending bills that states taxpayer monies will not be used to fund abortions. So, and Eric Wasson said a key sticking point in the talks appears to be GOP demands to include Hyde Amendment language in the bill to prevent federal funds from being used for abortion. Perfectly reasonable. Pelosi, Planned Parenthood, and other members of the abortion lobby accused Republicans of holding up that emergency bill to promote their anti-abortion agenda. The Democrat leader herself criticized Republican leaders, stating families have needs and that a decision was needed to help families right now. Right. Yeah. Okay. So there you go, but there's more. There's always more. Especially when it comes to Pelosi. All right. Now, this is really what is happening right here. Stimulus talks are stalled out after House Democrats unveil $2.5 trillion counterproposal. So let's look at this. Update, Politico's John Brissenin reports that Senator John Thune said stimulus talks are stalled out. Thune added, my sense is we're not making a whole lot of progress today and we're back tomorrow. Additionally, leaving Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's office, Senator Chuck Grassley and John Cornyn said they didn't think there would be a vote tonight. Update, the new Democrat counterproposal will equate to nearly $2.5 trillion, including a 1,500 direct payments to citizens. It will include 150 billion in healthcare funding, 80 billion in loans, and 600 per week in unemployment benefits for those affected by the CV. 215 billion will be allocated for state and local funds. And this from Jesus, well, he calls himself Jesus, Wall Street Jesus, I don't know. U.S. Democrats' new bill proposal reportedly equates to U.S. 2.5 trillion U.S. dollars, 1,500 direct payment to citizens, and well, it's basically just reiterating what we just read. So, and via Bloomberg, would expand paid leave and family medical leave. Okay, he's including all this, but hang on, because we're going to get to, if it's not here, it's in subsequent articles, because they discuss what's actually in there, and it's a little alarming what sort of non-related things they tried to slip in there. Of course, it also requires airlines to adopt strict Green New Deal style emissions rules. Now, please tell me what any of that, making the airlines adopt these strict new green rules has to do with the crisis at hand. Nothing. It has nothing to do with it. I don't know why they're trying to stick in all this stuff that, basically holding the bill hostage until they get all their stuff in there, which has nothing to do with the virus at all. And Mike DeBonis, new summary of House Phase 3 proposal circulated by Democrats. Still no legislative text, but hang on here. No, it's not in there. Here are just a few things Democrats are holding up the coronavirus relief bill for. Corporate board diversity. Corporate board diversity. They're holding up the checks to individual American citizens for corporate board diversity. College debt relief. Election auditing. Canceling the debt of the Postal Service. Same-day voter registration, requiring airlines to offset their emissions. Okay. But wait, there's more. Pay equity, funding for community newspapers, free internet. Is that 100 million? For NASA's Environmental Restoration Group, mandatory sick leave for every single business, hiding the citizenship status of college students from the Census Bureau. That's the kind of nonsense that they have stuck in there, hiding citizenship status of college students from the Census Bureau. That's what they think is so important. Paying off the debt of the Postal Service, that's what they think is most important in this crisis? What? Free internet? Give me a break. Funding community newspapers? This is not the time for that. Anyway, she's a piece of work. With 5 GOP members absent, the Senate again lacks the votes to advance the largest stimulus bill in U.S. history aimed at fighting the economic fallout from the CV pandemic. The vote is ongoing. However, McConnell says the delays could push the stimulus package to Friday. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the vote is irrelevant because he is still discussing the details of the deal with the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, according to Bloomberg. Meanwhile, Speaker Pelosi says the bill puts corporations first, which is not really true. She's saying we require that any corporation takes taxpayer dollars must protect their workers' wages and benefits, not CEO pay, stock buybacks, or layoffs. Well, here's the thing. In the bill that the Republicans propose, it states that money is not to be used for the CEO's pay, to increase the CEO's pay, or for stock buybacks. So what is her problem? Well, yeah, that would take at least a month worth of shows. And are you kidding me, he asked, adding, this is the moment to debate new regulations that have nothing whatsoever to do with this crisis. That's what they're up to over there, motioning to Democrats. Democrats won't let us fund hospitals or save small businesses unless they get to dust off the Green New Deal, he said. True. And that's what they're doing. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell slams Democrats over the delay in coronavirus relief bill. And we just read what he said. McConnell has scheduled a new vote for 1:45 p.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, House Democrats are set to unveil a bill introduced by Representatives Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar, which would cancel at least $30,000 in student debt per borrower amid the CV pandemic. Well, they've already announced that they're not putting any, they're not going to, make you pay that, your student loan, during this crisis. So anyway, during the unprecedented crisis, no one should have to choose between paying their student loan. They won't have to because it's being extended. Putting food on the table or keeping themselves and their families safe and healthy. Now, what does making the airlines, conform to your Green New Deal, what does that have to do with keeping families safe and healthy? We must prioritize debt cancellation for the 45 million student loan borrowers who are struggling to pay off their debt during this difficult time. As the country slips into economic chaos, Democrat gatekeepers to a $1.8 trillion stimulus package have made several demands which have nothing to do with coronavirus before they'll sign off on the legislation. So that is what these people do in a crisis. And they fault Donald Trump? Are you kidding me? According to Town Hall's Guy Benson, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi are demanding massive collective bargaining powers for unions, more stringent fuel emission standards for airlines, and an expansion of wind and solar tax credits. What's that have to do with the CV crisis? Nothing. Not a thing. Not only are these completely unrelated to the CV epidemic, they could prevent companies from participating in the loan programs altogether, directly causing unnecessary layoffs. Benson then directs our attention to a Thursday article from The Hill in which House Democrats indicated they wanted to go bigger and broader than the already massive economic stimulus package offered by Senate Republicans to blunt the coronavirus pandemic. This is a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision, said Majority Whip James Clyburn. How do you like that? This is a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. This is the opportunity that they take, holding America hostage until they get their way. Boy, this sounds familiar. A bunch of 3-year-olds, that's what they are. No offense to 3-year-olds, because 3-year-olds behave far better than these people do. Anything that doesn't address that pandemic, it seems to me, should not be considered, he said. And I agree. That is what this is all about. You know, and it has to go through quick to help those people that are really, really in need. But it's not going to go through quick, and you can thank Pelosi and Schumer for that. Yes, they're lovely people, aren't they? And this by Kevin Barnard. He says, I'm not an expert, but what does any of that have to do with CV and small businesses and their employees taking the brunt of the economic collapse? And Kevin Davis says, what do airline emissions have to do with the CCP virus? Nothing. That's it. Nothing. They don't care. When have they ever cared? I mean, I don't know what's happened to the Democrat Party. I mean, I've always been conservative, but still, you know, the Democrats of old were still fairly good people, I thought. I don't think so anymore. All right, let's go back and let's see. Can't remember what this is, but I'm sure it's something good. Oh, yes. Now, this is 2 minutes and 13 seconds, and I want you to hear this. This is Sidney Powell exposing the Wiener laptop. Exposing, I like that. Exposing the Wiener laptop. Contents, HRC, Huma, vid, that made NYPD officers throw up after seeing. So let's listen to what she has to say.
Of the Espionage Act, and really no issue about intent, despite President Obama proclaiming otherwise. And of course, you realize the reason that Hillary had to be protected was because he was writing her on that secret server using an alias, which shows that he damn well knew and had approved in advance her use of the secret unsecured server. On top of that, there's the Anthony Weiner laptop, which I don't know if you heard this. I wrote an article about that too. 675,000 Clinton emails when they got Anthony Weiner's laptop in a search warrant because of all his sex perversion issues. It was all the Clinton emails, the Clinton Foundation, her Secretary of State emails, Huma Abedin's emails. Lots of people emailed Huma as a proxy for Hillary, and it included what Comey called the I must wave my hands more than most people. The golden emails, because they were the BlackBerry backup emails that they were supposedly just looking for everywhere very diligently. Well, guess what they did when they found them on the Weiner laptop? They got a search warrant for things that didn't include the BlackBerry backup emails. So when they told us, when he stood there and said that day, oh, you know, we've reviewed all the emails now, there's nothing there, that was a bald-faced lie. They specifically did not look at the BlackBerry backups, and they didn't look at a fraction of the emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. So one of the things, if I were the president, I'd do is demand the Anthony Weiner laptop and get it to the most trusted person in the military to take apart everything on it and then start using it. There's a lot that can be prosecuted, I have no doubt, on that laptop. In fact, I heard that the New York police officers who saw some of it, even though they're hardened investigators, literally had to go throw up. It's bad.
So there you have it. And we've heard that. We've heard that now, and you know, New York police officers, they've probably seen it all. And for them to actually have to go and throw up, it has to be really, really bad. So let's go and see what else we have. Okay, I'm going to skip to this one right now. All right, now this is very interesting. New York, a Muslim Brotherhood activist of Egyptian origin based in New York, United States, made a video urging his followers to infect the enemies with CV and said that God will be helping them if they work properly. Not my God. No, my God doesn't do things like that. I don't know about his God, but Bagat Saber, who has 197 followers on Facebook, 143,197 followers on Facebook, vowed that if he gets sick with CV, he will go to the Egyptian consulate in New York to infect everyone he can. He then urges his followers who are sick with CV or any flu to purposefully meet the government and intelligence officials, police, and military officers to infect them. Now, I'm not going to play this. I don't want to give this guy any more time than it's disgusting. He made the speech in Arabic for his fellow Brotherhood members, which was later translated in English by the Middle East Media Research Institute. Saber said whoever has flu-like symptoms, cold, fever, sneezing, should pay a visit to his friend who works for Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's government. The moment you get flu-like symptoms, like a cold or a fever, go to the public prosecution office that is closest to your house. Go to any building where they might illegally incarcerate people. If you can, go to a building of the Security Investigation Service, and if you can't, just wait for them and sneeze on their cars when they pass by, he added. Saber claimed that coronavirus will topple Egypt's president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and God will be doing anything for them if they properly make use of the situation to infect others. Muslim Brotherhood is an extremist group founded in Egypt in 1928. The key backers of the group are Qatar and Turkey. However, as of 2015, the group was declared a terrorist organization by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Russia, and Bahrain. The group's literature, designed by Syed Qutb and Hassan al-Banna, is referred to as foundational work for terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So there you go, people. That's what they want to do. So please be careful of all surfaces that you touch. If you are going for groceries, another thing to keep in mind is that the trend now is to cough on the produce and film it for social media. Very, very sick, but make sure you take your produce home, put it in the sink with some water and a little cap full of bleach, not too much bleach, and make sure that everything is killed on it, that's on it, because you just don't know. There are so many sick people in this world. I really don't know how they even function. I don't know how they sleep at night, but apparently they do. So let's go on now and let's look at this real quick. Exclusive. Former HHS official claims CDC leaders lied to Trump over coronavirus testing. Washington, as the CV spread to all 50 states over the last 2 months, the Trump administration faced mounting criticism for the lack of reliable, widely accessible kits. Now, a former senior federal health official nominated to his post by President Trump alleges that the delays in testing occurred because leaders in the Centers for Disease Control lied to the president and to Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar about the center's ability to produce the kits. In making the allegation, Chris Meekins, a former Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services for Preparedness and Response, cited private discussions he has held in recent weeks with top federal officials and physicians and scientists employed in private sector industries that are active in the anti-CV effort. Meekins described his contacts on the White House CV task force as friends, some of whom he has known for many years. From my conversations with members of the task force, both inside and outside the administration, Meekins told Sinclair in an exclusive interview, the U.S. government, from Secretary Azar to the president, relied on the Centers for Disease Control to produce a test. They failed. CDC said they would handle it. What we have found out is that these leaders at the CDC lied to both the HHS secretary and, by extension, the president, and as a result, the nation got weeks behind. CDC has acknowledged that its initial stab at mass production of the test kits encountered a problem, and that federal deployment of safe testing equipment lagged as a result. The center's initial test kit carried the formal name Centers for Disease Control and Prevention 2019 CV, real-time reverse transcriptase diagnostic panel. On February 3rd, CDC invoked public health emergency laws to petition the Food and Drug Administration to allow medical professionals to make use of unapproved medical and diagnostic product that included these test kits. FDA issued its approval the next day with the green light. A special unit of CDC, the International Regent Resource, began shipping off the test kits. Shortly thereafter, CDC later disclosed laboratories started noticing performance issues with the test kits, with the end result of laboratory personnel not being able to verify the test performance. Yeah, that's an issue. The core issue was said to be a defect in the manufacturing of one of the reagents. The center said CDC is remanufacturing the reagents with more robust quality control measures. The center's website noted, adding the new tests would be distributed once this issue has been addressed. Dr. Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institute of Health, widely regarded as the most experienced and respected expert serving on the president's corona CV task force, said post blank in a January 31st briefing. We don't know the accuracy of the test, commenting on the availability of test kits for other viruses that are confirmed to be 100% accurate. Fauci lamented, that's not even near what we have right now for the CV. More recently, Fauci has intimated publicly that the Trump administration's experience with CDC in this urgent period was an unhappy one, with a transaction to a greater role for the private sector, reflecting the administration's displeasure. What can we say? Fauci told CBS News Face the Nation last Sunday, is that now we have the private sector involved. We're going to see an entirely different scene than we've seen the weeks previously, for sure. The sensational claim by Meekins alleging deception on the part of CDC leadership in their dealings with the White House and HHS has not been previously reported. A CDC official said Dr. Robert Redfield, head of the Centers for Disease Control, was briefed on Sinclair's reporting. Shortly thereafter, a spokesman for the center issued a statement that implicitly charged Meekins with deceiving the public. CDC rapidly developed a diagnostic test for CDC and the nation's public health labs. The statement said, today, more than 89 public health labs in 50 states and the District of Columbia are using the CV test. Now, I have heard that those tests were defective as well. I've heard that from several sources, so I don't know. I don't trust the CDC as far as I can throw them either. CDC encouraged our government partners to work with private sector. We regret that some are being misinformed during a time when CDC and our U.S. government partners are working 24/7 to protect Americans, their families, and their communities. The White House declined to comment. A spokesman at HHS asked about Meekins' claim that Secretary Azar was deceived by CDC leadership, declined to provide any substantive response. The spokesman instead issued a statement affirming that all of our leaders bring highly valuable experience and expertise to this effort, and that officials at CDC and FDA are working together to correct the issue with a diagnostic in a timely manner. So really what they're saying, I mean, obviously they're admitting that it was faulty without really outright blaming them, but I think they deserve the blame. All right. Now, this we have to get to. Because Harvey Weinstein has been placed in isolation after contracting, apparently, it's not going to let me view this without my, I hate this. They can't just put like one or two ads. They have to completely ruin your reading ability. And not only that, they make it so that you have to have the ads on or you can't see it. Unbelievable. These people are so greedy with all these ads. It's disgusting. Anyway, Albany, Oscar-winning movie producer Harvey Weinstein, now one of New York's most notorious prison inmates after being sentenced for sexual assault, has tested positive for CV, according to officials connected to the state prison system. Weinstein, who turned 68 last Thursday, is being isolated at Wend Correctional Facility in Western New York, officials told CNHI Sunday. He is one of 2 Wend inmates who have tested positive. Now, what are the odds? He is serving a 23-year sentence for rape and sexual assault in a prosecution that attracted worldwide attention amid the Me Too movement. Officials familiar with this situation said it is believed Weinstein was positive for the virus when he entered the state prison system last Wednesday from Rikers Island, a New York City jail. Weinstein was sent to Wend, where the prison system operates an intake center for new state inmates. Inmates are typically sent to other facilities from there after medical and security concerns are assessed. Weinstein was accepted by the prison system last week following his sentencing at a Manhattan courtroom. During his trial, he had been alternating his time between Rikers Island and a New York City hospital where he was being treated for high blood pressure and chest pains. Michael Powers, president of the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, said he could not comment on Weinstein's situation or elaborate on any inmate's health record due to privacy issues. Powers acknowledged the union had urged state correction officials to immediately suspend all non-essential transfers of inmates from one state facility to another, as well as the transporting of local jail prisoners to the state prisons during the ongoing health emergency. There is no better breeding ground for this virus than a closed environment such as a correctional facility, said Powers. The Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, the agency overseeing state facilities, declared last week it is suspending all visits to prison inmates to counter the spread. Now, this is what I find very, very interesting. Didn't we just hear that possibly Weinstein had, kind of squealed like a pig? He sang like a canary. And he probably ratted out the rest of his buddies in Hollywood. Hence, all the Hollywood people getting CV are really, anyone that believes that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson have CV has clearly not looked at the evidence. So I'm just wondering if he's going to mysteriously die from this CV, and then they'll put him into a witness protection program or something. I don't know. But if he did squeal, it could be. Because I think it's weird. Out of all the prisoners, there's 2, and he's one of them. Something's up with that, if you ask me. That's what I think. And you can't make me not think it. All right. Let's look at... I'm going to go through the rest kind of quickly here. Pelosi's CV bill is 1,119 pages and contains provisions for conducting risk-limiting audits of results of election. So, yeah, it's really very focused on the crisis at hand. Right. And it also bails out the Postal Service, as we've mentioned before. Oh, and yes, early voting will save us all from CV. It's allowing voting prior to date of election. So that's in her, this CV relief bill, or whatever they're calling it. Same-day voter registration, a long-time Dem wish list item, very relevant to addressing those businesses and working families about to go under from the CV. Yeah. And you know what families who can't work and are struggling to make rent really care about? Being able to look up greenhouse gas emissions from the flights they can't afford to book. That's right. Sorry, cat. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Requiring the airlines to fully offset their carbon emissions is not going to save the airlines. Nancy doesn't care about that. I too care for community journalism, but right now none of them have jobs because of CV, so maybe this isn't the time to modify their retirement plans. Yeah, modification of special rules for minimum funding standards for community newspapers. Alrighty, then we have this. How in the world did they punch out 1,119 pages overnight? Hey voters, they are living up to the never let a crisis go to waste mantra, and they're doing it on your life. And via senior GOP aide, Schumer Pelosi now pushing these demands amid a pandemic-fueled economic collapse. Unprecedented collective bargaining powers for unions. Yes, that's going to help everyone, isn't it? Increased fuel emission standards for airlines and expansion of wind and solar taxes. Yeah, because that's what we all need to make us feel better during this time of massive unemployment and strict quarantines. And this is interesting. Breaking, Harvey Weinstein has reportedly, we just touched on that, has reportedly been placed in isolation in a New York prison after testing positive. And I like this, Weinstein didn't virus himself. No, I don't believe he did. And I don't really actually believe he has it. Personally, he might. It's possible. Okay. I know, Sammy. I know. Oh, sorry. Sammy turned out the light here. Sammy, you know what? You're a little big to be a lap cat. Okay, sorry, cats. What can you do? He's a little sassy too. Okay, and let me see what this is, because it could be something really, really important. Or it could be something not so important. Here's the tail. Here, show them your tail, Sammy. Oh, yes, yes, yes. We have to see this. This is just bizarre. Bizarre. Another Madonna. Sammy, you are too much. Get down. Okay. This is another Madonna. This is just weirdness. And why are all these celebrities appearing without makeup? And, I mean, she's got regrowth there. And, I mean, I don't get it. She doesn't look well to me. But let's listen to this. It's bizarre, but let's do it anyway.
That's the thing about COVID-19. It doesn't care about how rich you are, how famous you are, how funny you are, how smart you are, where you live, how old you are, what amazing stories you can tell. It's the great equalizer. And what's terrible about it is what's great about it. What's terrible about it is it's made us all equal in many ways. And what's wonderful about it is that it's made us all equal in many ways. Like I used to say, at the end of human nature, we're all in the same boat. If the ship goes down, we're all going down together.
Now, I want to point a few things out here. Let me get to a place where she's maybe looking up. Well, this is kind of a close-up. I'm not sure how old Madonna is. I know she's a lot older than I am. I'm not sure how old she is, to tell you the truth. I think she's maybe in her 60s. I'm not sure. But look at the skin. There's not a wrinkle there. She is all Botoxed out, and the lips are unnaturally full. I mean, there comes a time where it just looks ridiculous, with the big lips. And I'm seeing this with so many celebrities as they age. They get so much done that they don't even look like themselves. They become almost a caricature of their own selves. And it's bizarre. But here she is talking about the coronavirus, and she's right. It doesn't care about how funny you are or how rich you are or whatever. It's the great equalizer. And so what she's saying is true, and then she gets into this, it doesn't matter, we'll all go down with the ship or something like that. It's weird. The music's creepy, everything. And I don't know who wears that much jewelry when they're in the tub, but Oh well, I guess that's the least of her worries. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. This person says, if the ship goes down, well, we're all going down together. And he's saying, why are the elites making weird videos right now? Well, they all are, all of them. And I think it's their way of communicating with each other or what have you. But it's bizarre. It really is bizarre. And this is staged because there's flowers, there's all these petals in the bath and the candles and everything. It's a beautiful bathtub, as bathtubs go, I guess. But there you go. Wanted to show you that. And let's see. I think we're almost finished here. Doctors in Spain, with tears in their eyes, tell how people over 65 must have their respirators removed to give it to the younger people suffering. Seniors are sedated so they don't suffer. That is awful. And I know if you've only got so many respirators and you've got a bunch of ill people, you're going to give it to the people that you think have the best chance to survive, but it's still sad. And look at this. Oh, look, just the founder of Vox advocating for Dems to withhold emergency CV funding to own Trump. Disgusting. And here it says Dems have the leverage here if they hold their nerve. Market is going to decline 10 to 20% tomorrow, so Schumer and Pelosi have to be coldly implacable. No Mnuchin slush fund, corp bailout along Warren's lines, redirect ad money for workers. So, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're holding out. They're thinking that it's going to, they're going to own Trump. Well, no, they're not. They're not. They can't. He's too smart for them. Now, Secret Service employee tests positive for CV. Also, there are GOP senators in quarantine, resulting in losing the Senate majority. That's a big deal. The Democrats are literally taking advantage of GOP senators who are quarantined to try to leverage their special interests into a bill that is solely to help Americans and their businesses survive. And did you see where Fauci was telling reporters that he sometimes had to repeat things 4 times to POTUS before he understands? He is definitely undermining POTUS. Well, he's a lifelong Democrat and a big fan of Hillary, so what do you think he's doing? That's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to undermine the president. Fauci has gone out of his way to undermine President Trump, including with his face in his hands moment during Trump's presser. Longtime swampers create political conflict during crisis. Sure they do. And this, New York coronavirus cases surge 38% overnight to 20,875. Also, Queen's Royal Aid tests positive for CV. And due to the collapse of crematories, Madrid will use an ice skating rink to store corpses. How sad. All right, and says the mayor of Bergamo, which is, of course, in Italy, for each COVID death, there are 3 who die at home of pneumonia without a test. So the numbers, what he's intimating there is that numbers are a lot higher than the official numbers because not everybody that dies of this is tested. All right. Now, oh yes, and Google's co-founder, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, relinquished their titles and step down. That is noteworthy. And, oh, and look at this. Snuck into Pelosi's coronavirus bill is a little no voter ID required and ballot harvesting like California does. She's giving an ultimatum. Either die or let us steal all future elections. That's exactly what she's doing. Exactly. She does not care at all. And I'm not sure what this is right here. I'm going over tonight, but I do want to get through this so that I can start fresh tomorrow. Oh, yes, this is important. Now, during the press briefing, and that wasn't today, I don't think, at least if it was, I didn't see it. But anyway, no, it was yesterday. So Trump reached into his pocket, pulled out a card, and looked at it and put it back in his pocket. The Trump card. Remember when Q was talking about the Trump card? When do you use the Trump card? When you most need it. So let's look at this.
Well, again, Honeywell called the White House asking for help from
See, watch Trump.
the president. And what they said is, look, we want to do this new factory in Smithfield, Rhode Island. They called me on a Friday morning.
Now,
And
he
by
was
that
sending
night,
a signal.
we had
There's
again,
no
Honeywell
doubt.
Called the White House.
No doubt at all, in my mind anyway. Because he does that. That he's been known to do that. And I think he's signaling, just like the lack of the seal. We went from the White House seal to no seal, sealed to unsealed. So he's letting us know that not only that the sealed indictments have become unsealed, but it's time for the Trump card. I think that's pretty clever, if you ask me. He's a pretty clever guy. All right, and let's make sure I didn't miss anything here. Okay, the rest of this is stuff I have to look into later. All right, well, let me go ahead and thank those people that I need to thank, because they're the people that don't are able to donate or contribute, and don't ever feel an obligation, especially if you are out of work during this time or on a limited income, really. But the following donated via coffee: Anon, Barb, and Marcy Petty. Thank you so very, very much. And new Patreon subscriber, Elena Cranley. And thank you, Elena. I appreciate that. And I got some snail mail. And thank you, Theodore Legacy. That was very, very nice of you. And I think he goes by Teddy, if I'm not mistaken, on in the comments. You see his name often in the comments. He's been a long time listener. So thank you very much. I appreciate it so very much. And I will be back tomorrow, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you in the next video. Please stay safe, stay well, and keep seeking the truth, because deception can truly, truly kill. All right, guys. Good night.